instead of actually going to real stores, brick and mortar, and supporting local businesses. If you're going to Walmart every time you need to fill your shopping cart, then you are basically contributing to the problem, because doing the status quo, taking those default settings, is adding to the problem. And we've got to be in mass. And I know enough people listen to your program that even if just we did this, we'd have a massive impact. Because, I drive up and down the freeways, by the way, in New Hampshire, and I see InfoWars bumper stickers on the back of random cars. I mean, you are everywhere, Alex. So if the listeners to this radio program would get a clue and say, all right, here are some things I'm going to do. I'm going to start paying cash. I'm going to start patronizing locally owned stores, even if I have to pay more. Everybody always says, oh, but everything's so cheap at Walmart. I say, how cheap is your freedom? How much are you willing to sell that for? Because I would rather go to a local store, and I do this consciously, and spend an extra 50 cents on a $2 item, consciously aware, with total awareness that I'm spending more, and I view that 50 cents as me putting money to fund the things I believe in.
And by the way, there's so much stuff out there. A lot of times you can buy stuff at a swap meet or a garage sale. That's why the headline Fox News last year, $15 million fine for garage sale. They are coming. Forbes asked the question, why is there a war against lemonade stands? Why is there a war against Amish or folks selling pecans on the side of the highway? Because the system, this is a corporate takeover. And they want you under their control.
Is those little sales, they may seem little to us, but they're a massive part of the economy. And those guys want everything. It's the greed factor. I want everything. Google wants all the searches and all the phone calls and all of the everythings. And, and by the way, I shouldn't single out Google, because that's kind of not fair. It's also Yahoo. It is Hotmail. It is...
Yeah, but Microsoft, and we're almost out of time. We're almost out of time. Speaking of that, because I want to come back and take a few calls for you, Catherine. Here's the Daily Mail. Forced to stand for 24 hours, suicide next... toxin exposure and explosions inside the Chinese factories making iPads for Apple. I mean, that just shows how sickening Apple is. Now they pose as trendy liberals. Now, speaking of that, here's Bill Gates. And if you go read the ABC News blog, the whole thing is sponsored. And they've got a link there that it's paid for by Bill Gates. And then the articles all tell you how much he loves you when he's on record being a eugenicist that says literally kill granny. And people don't believe that. Just type in Bill Gates, calls for death panels. Now, look at this. He is now bought into Monsanto big time. But look at this. London Guardian. Food crisis compromises fight against world hunger, warns UN report. And it goes in Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're literally financing the entire news and what's said. And it's all about how much he wants people to get food. But then in his real writings and statements, he's actually trying to cut the people off. I mean, here's this eugenicist whose dad ran Planned Parenthood, financing propaganda that's the opposite of what he really does, Catherine.
The whole food thing, huh? It does come down. I mean, we can talk information control all we want, but in the final analysis, it comes down to food. I mean, it does. It comes down to food, water, and air. You cut that off, and you will have a population very quickly doing whatever you want. So when Bill Gates starts talking about controlling food, I start getting super nervous. And when he talks about genetically modifying mosquitoes, like, that's the last thing I need is Microsoft, who can barely run an operating system, releasing a bunch of genetically modified mosquitoes into the environment. No, thank you.
You know why they can barely run it? It's got so many back doors built into its spying. We all think, as you point out, we're using Google, we're using Microsoft to... No. That's only part of it. It's got the back door. The whole thing is designed to see what you're doing.
That's right. So, yeah, and by the way, speaking of Microsoft, Linux is your other opt-out. Check off the checkbox and get out of the default setting. Just like start pages for Google, that's what Linux is for Microsoft.
Yeah, stop using Google. We've got to move forward with a boycott. And I know they own YouTube. I'll continue to operate there, attacking and exposing their globalist takeover program. We'll be right back with your calls. Hello, I'm out. Okay, it's our last segment with Catherine. I'll do a little 5-minute extra to make sure I get to most of these calls that have been holding. But look at this New York Times article. The struggle for daily bread. The U.S. government pays farmers to produce less than half the food they could. It's the same in other countries. GMO is all about controlling the food supply and turning it into a genetic bioweapon, basically, that doesn't produce more seeds that you've got to continue to purchase from the globalist. It's the computer makers going in and basically genetically manipulating things and turning it into their own products so they can create monopolies. Here's the New York Times, the struggle for daily bread. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, now the world's principal private funder of agricultural research. And this is a guy that, you know, wants to release mosquitoes that carry vaccines to force us to take the shots. He's into weather weapon funding. He's the #1 funder of that. I mean, he's super creepy. And you look at all these other characters that are involved. And they always propagandize about how much they want us to, you know, have all this freedom and how much they love us. But meanwhile, it's the opposite, Catherine.
Kind of has finally figured it out. And again, you know, our parents didn't know that and our grandparents didn't know it. They saw Walter Cronkite on the evening news and it was gospel. So that's my point. And what has changed that and what has created this window for us to know this, to actually be able to hear what you're saying and understand it, believe it, and understand that it's true and that that is the way the world works. This is like unprecedented. People have always believed the propaganda except for a tiny, teeny little minority. And now you've got the majority getting it. And they get it because of the internet, which is why they're scrambling so much to shut it down.
Well, you know, Hillary talked about this, and so did Brzezinski last year, that the public's finally awake to them for the, quote, first time in history, and they're losing the info war. But expanding on that, Catherine, we're going to start jamming in some calls here. They miscalculated. They always knew there'd be people resisting them, but they thought they'd just call us conspiracy theorists. Now, many of us have audiences bigger than their organs, and it's freaking them out, and they miscalculated. They miscalculated, folks. We're in the fight. Doesn't mean we're winning, but we're in the fight. We better fight harder. Get the word out about Infowars.com, about alternative media, about StartPage.com, about it all. Get the word out today. Julio in Illinois, thanks for holding. Welcome.
Yes. Hello, Alex. I got a suggestion. U.S. state-run media or U.S. corporate media, seeing how they're all run by corporations, multinational corporations, all admitting that they support SOPA. So it seems perfect. Just like in China and in North Korea, they're state-run television.
No, they're the monopoly state-run media. I mean, it turns out most of the media, so-called mainstream media, got banker bailout money, Catherine. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, they did. And it doesn't take much. I mean, you take a look at, like, who's at the Bilderberger conferences, as you report on so efficiently. And, you know, it's all the media. It's the mainstream media who's at those events. You know, Google's there. They're all there.
Well, you know, Schmidt was there, and right after that happened, we got stuff filed on us, websites on YouTube taken down, and got not just delisted from Google News, but they lowered our search rankings a week after that.
Ouch. Yeah, okay, well, you got slapped.
Well, we had reporters there in his face, yeah.
I think they'd like the ability to do that to everybody. And see, that's the thing. Even, you know, Google started off saying, don't be evil, and Google offers some fantastic products, no question about it. And even if you trusted them as much as you trust your best friend, the reality is once everything gets consolidated into a single location,
it could always be taken over, and it has been. Right. We're almost out of time, Catherine. Real quick, Julio, any other points?
Well, yeah, just that, Catherine, a question for you. You know how GoDaddy's supporting SOPA. What's a good, you know, alternative server website?
You can look into that. You can look into domain registrars that are anti-SOPA, can't you, Catherine?
Yeah, you can. And, you know, go to StartPage.com to do it. Not Google. But, yeah, and, you know, we're working on an email. And, by the way, if people want to be beta testers, they can email me, just KMA@StartPage.com, and I'll see if I can get them on the beta test.
Very exciting. We're going to have to get you back on more about this. Thank you so much, Katherine Albrecht. We're on tonight, 7 o'clock Central. InfoWars Nightly News.
Thank you for listening to GCN.
Oh, by the way,
visit GCN.
Tomorrow's the last day for 44% off on the yearly membership. Prison Planet. Hundreds of names. All right, going into some overdrive here to jam in at least 3 more phone calls. John J. and Mouse Link. John and then Mouse Link. You're on the air from Florida. John, thanks for holding.
No problem, Alex. Great to be on your show. Love what you do. Keep doing what you're doing. I wanted to, can you hear me, Alex?
Yes, sir.
All right. I wanted to mention, I was watching Fox News the other night. Sarah Palin was being interviewed, and the interviewer was talking about Mitt Romney, how he was the best candidate to go up against Obama. And Palin was making a case for Newt Gingrich. Well, we all know Newt Gingrich is as corrupt as it comes, but she was making a case for him. But as she was talking, she said something very interesting towards the end of the interview. She says those pundits who are telling them what to do and those elites who want them to obey and listen to them and want them to shut the race down. And just as she said that, the interviewer completely cut her off. So it is just real interesting when you hear something like that on the mainstream media. I figured you get a kick out of that one.
Well, there are different camps. And Gingrich has always been a Democratic operative. And so the reason Republicans are attacking him isn't because he's such a globalist. So is Romney. It's that he's pretty much always been known, this is now coming out, as a Democratic Party operative and as a globalist, a deep cover operative. And so it's, the fact is Republicans don't like him. He's not even a rhino. And so that's why they can't stand him, because he did sabotage a lot of stuff that they wanted back in the 80s and 90s while posing as a conservative. He's extremely out of control. I think the elite are scared of him because he is such an egomaniac. They don't want somebody who might actually try to be president, even though he'd be evil. They want somebody who's more of a puppet like Mitt Romney. And that's my analysis of the situation. And in a way, that's kind of true. I mean, I'm not saying I like Mitt Romney. It's just Gingrich is dangerous, as I've been saying for years. I mean, the elite are even scared of him. I mean, he's a psychopath. He's dangerous. And so that's why they want a rubber stamp puppet, empty suit like Obama or Romney. Appreciate the call. Great points. Mouse Link in New York. You're on the air.
Alex, so good to speak to you. Is Catherine still on the line?
She's gone.
Okay, I had a couple of questions for her about the announcement that Twitter made this week about being able to selectively remove tweets based on the country of origin. Did you see that at all?
Yes, I covered it. It's in the Daily Mail and Associated Press and London Guardian. They're just announcing they're going to censor anytime they want, any government request. If if you're in Thailand and say, I don't like the taxes are too high, boom, your account's gone. Not just your tweet. They're admitting that they're going to censor. Twitter is hooked up with the State Department. On record, Twitter is a globalist operation. We use it, but it doesn't mean it'll be there forever. We use their big platforms to reach people, but we know it's all part of the internet takeover.
I agree with you. I like Twitter a lot. What I think is that we need to sidestep the official systems of communication and create alternative technology. And what I wish that somebody was talking about, because I don't hear anybody mentioning this idea, is that we could create a peer-to-peer internet based on existing technologies with, the technology that everybody already has in their home with like their Wi-Fi or maybe something like WiMAX. I mean, I don't understand why we couldn't daisy chain like an internet connection through all of our neighbors.
Well, stuff like that's going to happen. But the biggest thing is just going to other sites that aren't part of the globalist insider ring and fighting for the freedom of the web, pointing out that it's nothing but a monopolistic takeover taking place, and using the web while we've still got it. I mean, folks, please, on your Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, plug Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. There's a reason they're starting more and more to censor us. By the way, I keep forgetting, and I don't know if the link's up yet, but we're going to have Infowars.com/on the road. But I'm going to be speaking in Dallas and Orlando, Florida, coming up in only like 20 days from now. And I haven't even really plugged this. Tickets are on sale. They'll go quick once folks find out about it. You can find the article about it. It's titled Alex Jones, Blueprint to Defeat the New World Order. See you back tonight.